Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the WTF1 Podcast with one less member.
Singular wave.
Katie has found a better opportunity, which is going on holiday. And I completely understand. You know, you've got to take some time, haven't you? Especially over the summer break. And, well, she's not the only one taking time. Every other F1 team seems to be taking time as well, as we're not getting any news. That'll be the first question coming up. But Tommy, how are you enjoying your summer break? You've been a little bit ill, haven't you, the last few days?
I have. I've been. It's definitely me going, there's no F1, so you might as well just be ill now and then get better for when F1's back.
That's good timing. You know, you're absolutely committed to the cause. Your immune system is committed to the cause.
Not for my life, for work, yeah.
Yeah.
Although
just
F1,
for work.
F1 is my life, so
yeah. Same here. Anyway, so of course we are very much towards the end of the summer break now. But we thought we'd do a podcast to kind of answer some of your questions, albeit there's not a huge amount because nothing's really changed. But there have been a few snippets and things going on. So we'll start straight away, shall we, Tommy? Let's do it. You know, a little bit of nod. Lovely. Right. First question comes from Team WTF1 member R-Done0. They say, has this been one of the quietest summer breaks in terms of F1 news, driver transfers, etc., ever? I mean, I don't have a statistical graph of the amount of pieces of news that has come out over each season, but it's been very quiet. Are summer breaks usually really busy? Probably wouldn't.
I don't think they're normally wired because they do have the shutdown, don't they, where they're not allowed, the teams are literally not allowed to do anything for, I think it's 2 of the weeks. And then the other 2 weeks they are allowed to actually get back and do things.
Say things.
And say things. And I'm sure the Daniel Ricciardo news of him going to Renault that time was in the summer break and no one was really expecting it. And it's absolutely crazy. And I'm sure a lot of people have been thinking that because of that, maybe this is where we get the George to Mercedes news or something like that. But no, not anything like that. Just, well, races getting cancelled.
Sad times. Yeah, we will get onto that. Lovely little segue, actually, Tommy. But yeah, I think as you say, that they're not allowed to work anyway. And a lot of the times they shut down their social media as well, don't they, for a little while and, you know, just wave goodbye and maybe have a few automated things going out. But yeah, no George Russell news because, well, I didn't think it was ever coming out in the summer break. I definitely didn't think it was coming out for the British Grand Prix. And they're going to wait as long as they want to make that decision. And it's probably for the best.
Hanging on with a carrot on a stick as he does everything he possibly can to help them until the very last race when they go, goodbye.
Thanks for your help. We'll be, that's it. Thank you so much for doing
Thanks for Turn 1 Hungary. Good job. Bye.
Yeah. Right. Next question. Michael Grimwoo5 says, what track should replace Suzuka, or should F1 take the opportunity to give all the mechanics and support crew a well-earned rest? Now, as much as I would love to say that F1 would just be like, you know what, guys, have the week off, I think they will do everything they possibly can to try and fill that slot because money, but it's a difficult one. Of course, you know, this whole double header at COTA, but then obviously COTA itself is up in the air, and
that hasn't even been announced yet. That's like
that's just a rumor, isn't it?
Well, it's the worst kept secret because it was on the F1 website. They changed it and then didn't expect that everyone on Twitter noticed these things. You only have to do one little mistake, like we did when we accidentally posted a draft about George Russell going to Mercedes that was just there just in case it did happen. We didn't know anything, and it gets posted for 3 seconds, undo it, and of course eagle-eyed people on Twitter screenshot, post it, and you just can't get away with these things anymore. So
you can't. No mistakes. No. So yeah, there you go then. So obviously COTA not confirmed, but kind of confirmed, although things seem very up in the air. As we thought coming into this season, that part of the world would probably be a difficult one to get over there. So, of course, then with Suzuka as well, what are they going to replace it with?
Well, they had, because Suzuka was part of the triple header between Russia and Turkey. So Russia, Turkey, Japan is quite a strange triple header. It's not like it's maybe France and Double Austria, where it's very close.
Yeah.
I mean, they're kind of close, but not really. Yeah. The thing with like replacing them now is they're running out of circuits rapidly. I saw a few people yesterday saying, "Oh, what about things like Sepang?" And that's just gone off the MotoGP calendar today. That's been cancelled. That's another part of the world that's struggling a lot with COVID cases again. So we're running out of circuits, and they were really adamant, weren't they, that I'm sure they said at the start of the year, it will be 23, because I think we each made a prediction. I can't remember how many we said at the start of the year, but we each made a prediction of how many there probably would be. And there's other tracks on there still. There's a TBC round, which is still on there. Let's
just race at TBC.
TBC,
it sounds like a great track. It just
there's so many. Yeah, I mean, so many more could end up going off the calendar. I just hope it gets sorted quickly, because when you've got a championship as close as this one, you kind of want to know how many races are left and how much you need to push and etc.
Not that they wouldn't push every weekend,
no,
but I guess in terms of, I guess for the teams, it's more with the components as well. Of course, they have limited bits and pieces that they can use on the car, and when they use up their allocation of 5, I can't remember how many it is now of certain bit. I know it changes for different parts of the car, but they obviously use older engines for certain tracks, but then they might get to a stage where they've actually saved too much because we've lost 4 or 5 races. So I can imagine it's a bit of a headache for Formula One teams this year. And yeah, it would be a shame, wouldn't it? Because would it then taint an amazing season that we've had so far if we then only end up having 16, 17 races or whatever, and all of a sudden we're 5 or 6 away from the end of the season? So
it could be a very odd calendar because it has been so congested, because the European leg has been manic. I'm sure Crofty mentioned it in the last race that if you carry on from the back end of last year in actual calendar window, there's been an obscene amount of races. Had this massively packed schedule at the start of the year, and then imagine if we only go to like 6-7 races for the end rather than the 12 that were expected. I'm sure Red Bull wouldn't mind a few races dropping off, having their engine allocation. They're going to have to potentially take an engine penalty this year with Perez and Verstappen, so they probably wouldn't mind a few less races to save them.
I mean, it depends, I guess, how far behind or ahead they are of Hamilton and Mercedes come that sort of area of the calendar. But yeah, it's a difficult one. It's a sad one, of course. Safety is first in all of this, and we don't want them to push 23 races if it literally isn't safe to do so. But the sort of unknown, the uncertainty is must be very difficult logistically to sort all of that out. But there's not many that spring to mind, is there, for replacing Suzuka in that part of the world?
No, not if you end up going back to Europe, but then you have the problem with
go to Fuji,
the Nürburgring. Well, Japan's.
I guess in general. Yeah, I don't know why I said that. Like Suzuka is the only place they can't go.
Yeah, I think you'd have to end up going to Europe again, but
it scares.
Europe in October is a bit.
Well, we saw that. Was it the Nürburgring we went to in October last year, and it was freezing. It was single digits of temperature, wasn't it? And it was very, very cold. It's not to say it can't be done, but then there's the whole what does it take for it to be an F1 World Championship, and they have to go to a certain amount of continents. Yeah. There's all sorts of talk, isn't there? But it's not a nice conversation to have, because of course we want as many races as possible, but I guess at the same time 23 races packed as closely as it was, having a few cancelled won't be bad for the crews and the one the guys working out there that have been absolutely sent to the absolute limits of their stamina, and at the end of the season they must be absolutely destroyed. We interrupt this WTF1 podcast for a very quick chat about one of our sponsors for this episode, Relief Band. We've all experienced that horrible feeling, haven't we? Whether it's in the backseat of a car staring at your phone after one too many on a night out with friends, or even just the anxiety of a work day. Nausea can ruin a day, force us to change our plans, and in the most severe cases, make us unable to function. For those of you who can relate, let me introduce you to Relief Band. Even if you don't get nauseous often, I'd try Relief Band for the anxiety benefits alone. It's the #1 FDA-cleared anti-nausea wristband that has been clinically proven to quickly relieve and effectively prevent nausea and vomiting associated with motion sickness, anxiety, migraines, hangovers, morning sickness, chemotherapy, and so much more. Anyone who deals with nausea knows how awful it is. You don't need me to tell you that. The product itself is 100% drug-free, non-drowsy, and provides all-natural relief with zero side effects for as long as needed. How it works is Relief Band stimulates a nerve in the wrist that travels to the part of the brain that controls nausea. Then it blocks the signal your brain is sending to your stomach, telling you that you are sick. It's not a product you want to miss out on. It'll bring you peace of mind and help you never worry about nausea again. As you're getting ready to take that summer road trip, hopping on the boat, or just anxious about heading back into the office, we've got good news. Right now, Relief Band has an exclusive offer just for WTF1 listeners. If you go to reliefband.co.uk and use promo code WTF1, you'll receive 20% off plus free shipping and a no questions asked 30-day money-back guarantee. So head to reliefband.co.uk and use our promo code WTF1 for 20% off plus free shipping. Right, let's get back to the podcast. Next question. I am the Highway 92 says, when do the FIA just admit defeat with the COVID cancellations and leave us with a still respectable 20-ish races? They'll admit defeat when there's no tracks left to go to. I think, as I say, it all comes down to money. They want to, when they cancel races, it's not as simple as, oh yeah, it's fine. No problem. Like F1 made a massive loss last year, didn't they? Last year. And they can't afford to keep doing that. So they need to have 23 races, I guess, to, start to fill that hole that was from last year. So it is literally when they run out of options, isn't it?
Yeah, because I'm trying to think what race it would have been now. What was the race that got cancelled and then replaced by Turkey, and then Turkey ended up dropping off itself? I can't remember because the calendar is Canada, I think. Yeah, so Canada dropped off, and the fact that they changed it with Turkey, which wasn't really ready itself, just showed the desperation of how much they really want to just do that 23 race calendar. But then Turkey itself dropped off, and then another one dropped off, and then Turkey came back again. Very, very strange. I've lost track. I know a lot of people. We made a calendar for phones, and people have said, like, can you update it? But every time we update it, something else changes.
Exactly.
So it's really hard to.
We'll just leave blanks, and then you can draw in the tracks when they get announced, because it's constantly changing, isn't it?
But I think it's going to be a case of them running out of circuits to go to. I can think of Nürburgring, Mugello, but then it doesn't really work with the calendar. Maybe Abu Dhabi with its new layout, or I saw a few people joking this morning that we have 4 rounds at Sakir because they've got multiple different layouts. Who knows? I personally wouldn't mind seeing the Sakir sprint track again. The oval, not an oval track, but they're slowly running out of tracks and time.
Exactly. It's a sad thing to see, but maybe next year we will have a more normal calendar. Who knows? But
2027, maybe next year.
Yeah, I know. It's the sad reality, isn't it? Where it just constantly gets better, then it gets worse again. Quickly, just want to mention, we've just launched our Silverstone track experience for Team WTF1 members. Essentially, you can have a high-speed passenger ride in a race car around the full Grand Prix circuit at Silverstone, which is pretty cool in itself. Then you can also drive a track tour in your own car. Doesn't matter if you don't drive, but obviously it'd be cool if you did. You can meet us, which is probably the least
that should be
attractive
lower on
part
the
of
list,
the entire announcement. There's Q&As, there's breakfast, lunch, and afternoon tea with drinks throughout the day. And there's also a state-of-the-art race simulator competition with great prizes to be won. So if you want to find out more about the Silverstone track experience, then click the link in the description below. Lovely. Next question, at Not Maddox H. Do you think the team who causes the crash should pay for the damages, or do you think it's just a part of racing? No, I don't think they should pay, because
Benotto's been saying this a lot, hasn't he, in the summer break I've seen.
It just opens up an absolute can of worms, doesn't it? Then, it does. Then, it's such a difficult thing, because if there's a multiple car crash, then who gets what? And, it's, for me, I don't think it should be that. I think the driver obviously should be penalized, and that's part of the punishment for crashing into another car. But I think it gets very difficult, and also probably a lot more arguments between teams if that became a thing. So I'm probably not a fan.
It's unfortunate because, it's come up because of this cost cap, and the very vocal people on it are Ferrari, who have been crashed into by Stroll in the last race, and Christian Horner, who's had 2 Mercedes wipe their cars out in the last 2 races.
Interesting terminology there for the British Grand Prix incident. I don't want to open that one up again. But
no, but it's that being said, it is true, because you mentioned interesting terminology, like some people think it was Hamilton's fault, some people don't think it's Hamilton's fault still. So how do you draw the line? Because even though I think it's Hamilton's fault, I don't think it's 100% Hamilton's fault. So does he pay 70% of the damage? Like, how do you know what I mean?
Because if it's a racing incident,
it just seems one of those ideas that sounds great in theory, because it's like, okay, it's not your fault, so you don't have to pay. So that's great, but how would it actually work?
Exactly. It would have to come down to what the stewards decide and whose fault it is from the stewards, surely, because then if the stewards give Hamilton a penalty, then obviously they deem him at fault. But if it's a less harsh penalty, then they don't deem him as much at fault, because that's the thing. It's like they take into account what the other car did as well. And I'm sure because they didn't give him a drive-through penalty or whatever, they thought that Verstappen could have done a tiny bit more to...
That's what Formula One needs. More stewarding, yay. Absolutely not. No. And it would get, imagine if it did. Obviously, Mercedes ended up winning that race, so they accepted the penalty. But they were obviously still adamant that Verstappen was at fault. It was his fault. And then you get that situation where, you'd start having teams taking the other to court over whose fault it actually was. Because if that incident did happen and the FIA were like, right, okay, you've got to, Mercedes, you now have to pay Red Bull 1.3 million pounds because that's how much it cost. They'll be like, well, we don't think it was our fault. So then it would go to court, and then there'd be more. And then the things like the Vettel disqualification would be happening every single week, where we have these lingering penalties that go on for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I do not want to see that, because you want things decided there and then, really.
Exactly. And where does it end as well? Because if that's going to be brought in, then what if there's a Pirelli tyre failure, which is completely not the team's fault, and then a car crashes into the wall? Do the teams
minimal?
The teams start waving around a receipt?
Yeah, you've one of the mechanics accidentally tripped over the wing. That's 40p worth of damage. Can you pay us now?
Yeah, literally. So
I've got a bit of paint that needs to be redone. You need to pay for that.
And I think also with that, if the teams then are holding this responsibility of not hurting other cars, that we're going to get probably less interesting racing as well, because surely the teams may also speak to their driver and say, well, look, we can't afford for you to have a crash with someone else and it be your fault, because it's going to cost us $1 million or whatever. Because also, if you crash into someone, cause yourself damage, that's going to obviously be a repair bill, and then also the car that you've just hit as well. So it's just a part of racing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's the teams that have it's a big wake up call, I guess, from the cost cap era, and I guess something that maybe they didn't really have their head around at first, and then have gone, oh wow, this costs a lot of money to us, and not our fault. This isn't fair.
It's just F1 teams complaining, as they always do, week in, week out, about something or other, isn't it? And this is just one of those things. I personally don't think it will happen.
It can't. I don't even see how it could happen, even if it was a great idea and it was fair. But I don't think it is a good idea.
If it is a really big problem for the entire grid, the only solution I see is F1 opening up the cost cap a little bit more by 10, 20 million or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, that's what probably is the only way they'd be able to fix that without having to then penalise other teams. Anyway, that's we'll see how that one unfolds. We quickly interrupt this WTF1 podcast for a very quick chat about one of our sponsors for this episode, ExpressVPN. Using the internet without ExpressVPN is like going to the bathroom and not closing the door. But you might be asking yourself, why does everyone need a VPN? Well, internet service providers know every single website you visit. They can then sell this information to ad companies and tech giants who then use your data to target you. But why use ExpressVPN? Well, ExpressVPN creates a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet, so your online activity can't be seen by anyone. It's as easy as closing the bathroom door. Fire up the app and click one button. It works on phones, laptops, even routers, so everyone who shares your Wi-Fi can be protected. I mainly use ExpressVPN on my phone to make sure that I am the most protected I can be when browsing online. So, secure your online activity by visiting expressvpn.com/WTF1 today. That's expressvpn.com/WTF1, and you can get an extra 3 months free. expressvpn.com/WTF1. Right, let's get back to the podcast. Oh God, that's an interesting name. At Huao. Go on, Tommy. Huao.
Yeah.
Vitor Labres, sorry. Does Nyck de Vries deserve an F1 seat next year? Of course, Nyck de Vries won the Formula E World Championship.
The first World Championship.
Yeah, very recently. And it's the first world champion for Formula E. Does he deserve a Formula One seat next year? The thing is, Formula E is its own thing. I don't think it particularly proves your credentials to go into Formula One. If anything, Formula 2 is a much better sort of idea, in my opinion, because obviously you race at normal tracks, and Formula E is a very different motorsport series to Formula 1. Does he deserve a Formula 1 seat? Of course, he won F2 as well, didn't he?
He did win the championship. So, that
was the year. That was the year that wasn't massively... Because obviously he was he in the year of George Russell and Lando?
No, that was the year they all left. Russell, he won the 2019 championship. So the year,
but he was in the 2018 one as well, wasn't he? And
he was, yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, he wasn't up there with the potential candidates then.
He beat Latifi to the championship.
Yeah, which is not quite.
So make of that what you want.
I mean, comparing it to the year before and where he finished in comparison to the young guns that are now in Formula One.
He finished 17 places above Nikita Mazepin. So that was something.
F2 2018 standings. Let's just pop that in.
I don't know where he was in 2018.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm saying, Tom.
Was he a rookie then? Because that does help. I mean, personally, I think he's a very good driver. I totally agree with you that he's fourth. Fair play.
He was fourth.
And in that case, he was only 17 points behind Lando. So in that case, yes, I think he's very good. Because he did well, well in 2018 along those good drivers, and then stepped up, won the championship. But I agree with you that F2, this is not to discredit Formula E, but at the end of the day, the Formula E Championship, if anyone that watched Formula E, was absolutely insane, and 18 drivers could have won it going into the final race. And I think he won the title on 99 points. So you only have to win 4 races DNF from the entire season and you win the championship. That's how mad it was. Mercedes ended up winning the constructors, and I think they DNF'd from about 8 races or something.
And the 2 title rivals crashed right at the start of the race as well, didn't they?
And then the other title rival binned it in the wall when the race restarted. It was a bonkers season. And I know Formula 2 is bonkers as well, but I think the thing that people are thinking here is that there's been a lot of talk that Williams said they didn't need paid drivers anymore, which I think a lot of people are like, oh, that's
By Latifi.
Yeah. But then I guess if George goes, they've got the seat there, and it could be Latifi and Nyck de Vries.
Where's Bottas going?
Alfa Romeo, I reckon, maybe.
You reckon? Okay. Yeah, I think Nyck definitely does deserve an F1 seat when you compare to Latifi. I was thinking, in terms of does he stack up to the Landos? But you don't have to be a Lando or a George or a Charles Leclerc to get into Formula One, do you? So
no, and we've seen some people maybe have slightly less incredible careers and then be amazing in Formula One. Kimi is a good example of that, and Alonso wasn't exactly, good. Everyone thought he was really good, but he got into Formula One, and it wasn't like. Yeah, I think nowadays you have these wonder kids, don't you? Like George Russell and Charles Leclerc, where they just won every single championship on the way, and you're like, well, these guys are absolutely amazing. But then
I guess Stoffel Van Dorn did that, right? And
what happened to him? So
yeah.
I think he deserves a shot at it, definitely. And you never know; he could surprise a lot of people and
win the world title at Williams.
Win the world title at Williams after George leaves and doesn't get a point at Mercedes.
Oh, we laugh, but there's pain there.
We've said that so much that it's just like manifesting it now.
Absolutely, it'd be quite the transition for Nyck to go from Formula 2 to Formula E and then to Formula 1. That's probably something that no one's.
Formula E would milk it as a Formula 1 feeder series.
Oh God, no, they couldn't possibly. Surely not. Anyway, moving on. Elliot R. Harris, who in your opinion has to impress the most to keep their current F1 seat in their team and remain on the grid next year? Now,
Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah, Yuki Tsunoda's definitely one. Antonio Giovinazzi is probably another. Absolutely. Kimi's gone. Kimi's finished. Like he's packed his bags already. 100%, surely.
Giovinazzi is a difficult one for me because a lot of people think I see a lot of things where people say he's massively underrated and stuff. And yeah, he was great in F2, and unfortunately Alfa Romeo, they've just never been there where you can actually see someone's talent. So maybe next year if they have a good car, but for me, Giovinazzi is one of those people where even just one race, a little bit of spark where maybe it's wet or something happens. I know Ocon was very, very fortunate to win the race, but these kind of races, we've had quite a few bonkers races where like Gasly's won now, Perez won in the Racing Point. Ocon won, and then even he got on the podium, didn't he, in that race? Lance Stroll's got a lot of podiums. I know that car is not as good, but even if there was one race where he finished like 4th or 5th with an amazing drive,
which should have been Hungary. Right?
Yeah,
he was sat in P4 behind Latifi.
Was he?
Yeah.
Giovinazzi.
No, sorry, I thought you were talking about Tsunoda. Sorry.
Oh, sorry,
Tsunoda. Sorry.
No, Giovinazzi, yeah.
Giovinazzi. Giovinazzi definitely wasn't in P4.
No, I was going to say he was pitted for wets, but yeah, he's one of those drivers where you're just waiting for something.
Something, yeah.
And he's been in F1 2 years now? 3 years? 2 years?
3?
I'm trying to think. Let me have a look because I don't want to get it wrong because I'll definitely know about it. 3 whole years in Formula 1.
Yeah.
And also did a couple of races in 2017. So it's quite a long time to be in Formula 1 without, maybe having like a proper breakout race.
Frank's barking at something at the door.
He loves Giovinazzi, and
he loves Giovinazzi so much. But yeah, you make a very good point about Giovinazzi. Sorry, I thought you'd then transition to Tsunoda somehow. But and Antonio just hasn't had that sort of standout race to go, wow, okay, there has been crazy races and just not really turned up, which is a shame. I mean, to have 1 point, I know Kimi's got 2 this year, but to have 1 point after so many crazy races this year, probably not what Alfa Romeo are looking for, because Kimi is very much, he's not finished in terms of Alfa Romeo getting rid of him, but I think Kimi's just like,
he's
in
just
full
enjoying
chill mode
F1
now.
enjoying F1, and he has his moments, doesn't he? But then even you could argue Kimi's had like the odd moment where, he went from last to first in not first, but like fourth or whatever it was at Portimao, and you were kind of like, wow, this is amazing. Whereas still waiting for that from Giovinazzi. Maybe it's unfair to judge him when like the car's not there, and maybe when it's a more balanced field we might see something. And then as for Tsunoda, I think we've said it many times, like he is definitely under pressure because he just needs to stop crashing. I mean, if I look at his last results, they're fine. If he can keep finishing there and not have his crashes, I think he'll be all right.
You reckon? Okay.
Yeah,
it's
I
an
think
interesting one.
Yeah, because I think the team, it does seem like the team like him a lot. And I know this is Red Bull, but Franz Toz, seems like he wants to keep them both on. And I think if he just keeps picking up solid points, he'll be fine. He just needs to like show that improvement.
Because the crashes are much more costly this year, as we mentioned with the cost cap. Because he went from kind of overdriving the car to now feeling like he's underdriving the car but still crashing. It's a bit of a weird one, but of course, if he just manages to stop that, show that the first half of the season, learning, just getting used to Formula One. Second half, if he can just calm it down a bit, I think they might well just stick with him, because he has shown glimpses of potential, but just maybe not enough yet. Another person that's probably under pressure. So we've got Tsunoda, Latifi, Giovinazzi. That's Danny Rick. I mean, in some ways, Danny Rick, because Lando's on 113 points and Danny Rick's on 50. I wouldn't say that they're going to get rid of him at the end of this year, but I feel like if he continues with his run of form for the rest of this season, McLaren might start to question whether they made the right decision. Because if you have Carlos Sainz in that car, McLaren are clear third place in this constructors. It's just not been good enough from Danny Rick, and that hurts my heart to say, because I love him and I really want to see him do well, but he just hasn't been good enough.
I think his reputation will save him at least for a year, and then you get into the new rules and it's a maybe more equal playing field, and then I guess then he will have no excuse of, well, Lando's driven this car for 2 years and knows it inside out. Then we'll really see how he stacks up. But I think a lot of teams, will just maybe stick with the kind of drivers and see how it goes into next season. Give them a chance when hopefully the grid is a lot closer and they can prove their talent a bit more. That's the dream anyway. If Mercedes don't end up 5 seconds clear of the entire field and there's huge performance gaps because someone's found this double diffuser and all this stuff, hopefully not.
Now Williams or Braun GP it. You watch.
Nyck de Vries
world champion. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thumbnail. Nyck de Vries F1 champion.
And finally, at NJR10_SV5. What is your take on F1 possibly having more teams in the future? Of course, a lot of teams are leaving Formula E at the moment. Mercedes being the most recent to basically decide they want to just focus on Formula One, which is really bad news for Formula E, because they brought on these big teams. Is Audi dropped out as well?
Audi and BMW.
Yeah, Audi, BMW, and now Mercedes. Like, they are big manufacturers to lose.
That was their bragging rights, the manufacturers that they were pulling in.
Exactly, and to think that they are losing them when electric is the future and all that, especially on road cars. That is what electric cars, they're being developed by every big manufacturer. For them to then lose those manufacturers from Formula E is massive.
A sucker punch as well for them to say the reason is for them to focus on F1 more as well.
Yeah, I know.
That Mercedes to actually say that, because that's always been the excuse of maybe other people, that they don't think F1's road relevant and they don't want to do that. And that's normally what you hear the opposite way. But we've had, this happens every year, that every time they do new engine regulations and they discuss them, I think they had representation from Audi and Porsche, I want to say. 50 50, 60, 70 years time, there'll still be news stories of, could Audi come to Formula One? It's just that thing that's just been around forever, where any new rule changes, for some reason, Audi are the ones that everyone always says, would they come to F1? I don't know, personally. The one thing that's quite interesting that's happened recently is Alpine said they want to supply engines to a team. And looking at the grid, not really many they can. So maybe that's an opportunity for a new team to come in, whether they think that's viable in this area. Because it would be nice to have more teams, because having grown up with 24 car grid and used to way back in the 90s, you used to have people like trying to qualify for the races, 30 drivers, but now 20. Yeah, it would be nice to have a new team, because then it gets more people on the grid, and then you don't have to worry about these drivers that are really talented and can't get on the grid. Because I think that's the problem, is a lot of teams need money and there's not many spaces on the grid. So that's why you don't always get, the 20 best Formula One drivers or best racing drivers in the world on the grid. So I certainly hope so.
So do I. Having a big manufacturer like BMW or Audi or whatever coming in would be huge news for Formula One. And it's always good to have another big player in the game to stir some pots and have a few more arguments. Although, at the same time, you did mention that, is it viable for them to do this, especially in the current climate with COVID and everything? Pretty much everyone's making a loss. It's probably not the best time to join. But
I think the worry is as well. I mean, I'm just looking at who's in Formula One right now and thinking Haas are the only new team that have kind of come in and.
What do you mean, Aston Martin?
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, I mean, Aston Martin were Jordan. Williams have always been Williams. Alfa Romeo were Sauber. All these new teams are just, they're buying old teams. So it's a lot more than it takes a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if we had a new team if, God forbid, like Red Bull decided to pull out of Formula One and someone there took over their factories and stuff. Yeah. But it is such a massive commitment if you look at Mercedes and Red Bull, and even in a cost cap era, for them to say, right, we're going to make a Formula One team and build a factory, do all this. We saw that with Toyota. Didn't work. They thought they could throw loads and loads of money at it and win very easily, and they did not. So it's a massive gamble, and it's sad, really, because it does kind of feel like it's going to take a lot to get a new team to actually want to come to Formula One. A lot.
It is, yeah, because it costs a huge amount of money, as you say, and it's a big gamble. And getting that infrastructure in place, that's why, as you say, that's why you see so many, big teams and players buying an old team, because they've got everything that they need. Doing all of that in this current climate is just probably not something that seems feasible to any manufacturer. So maybe in a few years, I'd like to see it, but we will see. Tommy, I believe that's everything. Unless you have any.
I think
we've had any breaking news. George been announced or anything?
Don't think so. No.
No. Okay.
Probably tomorrow. As soon as we were umming and ahhing whether to do this podcast today or tomorrow. So yeah,
it's definitely going to happen, isn't it? Definitely. But it's been a pleasure. Tommy, what's your final thoughts? Bring back F1.
Yeah, bring back F1. No, well, Le Mans on this weekend, so I'll be watching a bit of that.
I'm going to be in Cyprus. Not that that's the worst thing in the world, but I'm flying and going to miss probably all of it. So, bit of a shame, really. I don't think Soph will be too happy if I stick on Le Mans at 2 a.m.
on the beach.
Yeah. I'll try. Don't get me wrong, I will try. But
yeah,
that's obviously exciting, Le Mans. We've actually got a video coming out tomorrow on the F1 drivers you never knew raced at Le Mans. So very exciting. And
Reckonston, Maldonado. No, it's not really.
Well, when did the Lord the Saviour race in Formula One? Anyway, Thank you so much, Tommy, for your wonderful thoughts, and thank you to you guys for joining and listening once again. I think next week will be a lot more full of. Well, actually, no, it's going to be Tommy and
Hopefully.
Katie. So well, for the
It
Saturday
would just be
qualifying watch along. We're not doing a
Yeah.
podcast, are we? Before
there better be
All that.
news because mine and Katie's. Imagine our final thoughts, and then that as a podcast without you. That should be a very interesting situation. Where just like,
who's
how
going
are
to say
you?
it?
All right.
Yeah.
So, what have you been up to?
Yes, you'll probably do a podcast end of next week, won't you? Maybe
Yeah.
Friday again after free practice. So enjoy that, everyone, with Tommy and Katie. There'll be the qualifying watch along on Saturday as well with Tommy and Katie, and then I'm back for Internet Special Reactions on Sunday. Don't you worry, I wouldn't miss that for the world. And of course, we have our podcast again that next Monday. Make sure you check out the Silverstone Track Experience in the description below, and we'll see you very soon. Thank you, Tommy. Bye.
Bye. This is very weird because my webcam is
My Zoom meeting came up with playing music ? That's
so tuneful.
That's how good the tune was.